The next part of the asynchronous material this week is for you to watch, listen, and read the transcripts of the interviews that Evie's Professor Garcia and I did on changemakers in zoning for equity. These are folks who were working at the local, state, and federal levels in 2 government agencies and 3 different advocacy organizations. Each of them is working on a blueprint that fits her geographic context and the kind of organization she's in. So you can imagine there's differences among those, and we hope you'll be able to talk about some of those differences with your classmates when you meet in person. They all really show that the blueprints and playbooks are interdependent. That is, the things they propose have a lot to do with the political context that they're in, and the strategies that they feel like they can use given their organization and their context. But also their organizations and their context shape which blueprints they develop. So these are interdependent, but also we clearly saw in all these interviews that both of these, the blueprints and playbooks, are evolving over time. They might win, they might lose, they might get partway there, but they don't give up with a win. They don't give up with a loss. They keep on innovating and inventing new things. There's a lot more people who are working to make zoning more equitable across the United States right now. Those numbers, I think, are only going to grow. And so I guess I would say, welcome to the club. I'm really glad that you decided to take this course and to add your creativity and energy to the effort. Just a little introduction now about 3 of the 5 people we interviewed, and then Evis will take you through the other 2. Marisa Navarra is the housing commissioner currently in the city of Chicago, working with Mayor Lightfoot. She was previously the planning director for the Metropolitan Planning Commission in Chicago also. It's a business-sponsored and foundation-sponsored organization doing advocacy and education on good land use, housing and environment and transportation policy. She was a leader of an effort called the Cost of Segregation, in which she worked with me and my own organization at the time, the Urban Institute, to quantify how much segregation was costing Chicago and other cities around the United States in income, in educational attainment, in health, and even in the victimization of people through homicide. She took those ideas and she went to work in the Lightfoot administration, and now she's in the position of trying to make sure that some of those ideas that are presented in a regional equity roadmap or blueprint get implemented by the city of Chicago. The second person that I want to bring out to you is Erin Boggs. She's the executive director of the Open Communities Alliance in Connecticut. Open Communities has been working to open up the suburbs in much the way that you'll read about or that you will have read about in the Whittemore article, working in probably the most segregated state in the United States. Her organization has a lot of different strategies to try to accomplish that, and I hope you'll be really trying to even keep count of the so many different ways in which they're trying to change the pattern of race and class in Connecticut's cities and suburbs. Third is someone who was made somewhat famous, I guess, by this book a couple years ago called Golden Gates by Connor Doherty. Sonia Tross is the executive director of YIMBY Law, based in the San Francisco Bay Area. She works really to open up housing for everyone in the Bay Area, departing from the model or based on the model that the region's housing affordability problems and also a lot of its equity problems come from local land use regulations and plans that simply choke off the supply of housing where people most want to live. And so you'll hear from her also. Next, I'm going to give it over to Evis, Professor Garcia, to talk to you about the last two people. Thanks, and we do hope you enjoy these interviews.
Hello, this is Ibis Garcia at the University of Utah, and now I want to introduce you to Angela Price, who is a project and policy manager for Salt Lake City Housing and Neighborhood Development Division, where she focuses on housing policy initiatives. And actually, she graduated from her master's in city and metropolitan planning here at the University of Utah. Angela has over a decade of planning experience and enjoys building in the nexus between land use and transportation, housing and economic development, which is like necessary to be able to zone for equity. And she is driven by impact, collaboration. In her conversation, she actually talks about how in Salt Lake City, a lot of the players collaborate and they're able to innovate that way in order to make cities more equitable. And she also has served on the American Planning Association of Utah Legislative Committee since 2019, in where she was able to look at housing policy that was more at the state level. Next, I will introduce you to Sarien. She's the Vice President of Public Policy at the National Low Income Housing Coalition. And I chose this organization because actually before becoming a PhD student at the University of Illinois in Chicago, I did an internship for the National Income Housing Coalition, and they're working in many interesting programs that are nationwide about how to preserve and how to expand affordable housing, also how to fund it, and they lobby Congress in order to make this happen. And they also do this through connecting with tenant organizations and more like grassroots organizations as well as state organizations. And Sarah's work is very interesting because it's focused on federal housing and community development programs at this particular scale that obviously affect how we can zone for equity. So we invite you to watch at least one of these interviews or just like read one of these transcripts so you can see how these housing professionals pursue policies at the local, the state, and federal levels that improve the supply, the quality, and access of housing that provides opportunity.